Hello, my true crime lovers. My name is Nada, and welcome to my channel. So, we're going back to June 2008. Now, this case is very popular, and I'm sure we have all heard about it. It's also one of my top 5 true crime cases, but this is number 3 on my list. It's the Caylee Marie Anthony case. Now, there is a lot to this case, and I'm going to do my best to cover everything from family history to the storyline, the evidence, what happened in courts, and of course, my unprofessional opinion throughout the video. Caylee Marie Anthony was an adorable 2.5, about to be 3-year-old little girl. People said she was bubbly and smart. She knew how to count up to 40 in English and in Spanish, which is pretty impressive for a 2.5-year-old. And people also said that she was just a loving little girl, that she just showed everyone so much affection, that she was just vivacious and had this beautiful soul. And she loved to wear her big sunglasses everywhere she went. Caylee was born on August 9th, 2005, and lived in Orlando, Florida with her mother, Caylee Marie Anthony, who lived with her parents, George and Sydney Anthony. George is a retired police officer and Sydney is a nurse. From what we know, Casey's lies and stories began in high school, from what George and Sydney tell us, and from people who knew her, like family and friends. So the first instance that we know of is her graduation. So her parents were asking her, her senior year, where her cap and gown was. How come we haven't got it yet? How much, they asked her how much it was. I'm assuming they gave her money to pay for it. So they're asking her where it is. How come they haven't received it yet? And she kept making excuses and lies and stories of why she doesn't have it, but she'll have it. Like she'll get it soon. So then her parents ended up getting a letter in the mail from the school saying that they needed to come into the school and have a meeting because Casey wasn't going to be able to graduate because she was skipping school and she didn't have enough credits to graduate. So her parents questioned her about it and she lied, of course. They actually all went up to the school for this meeting to discuss why she's not graduating. The principal and the counselor told Sydney and George, this is why, like, she's not attending school, she missed all this school, and she doesn't have enough credits to graduate. Now, instead of her parents saying, okay, let's get her into summer school, let's take extra classes, what can we do for her to get all her credits to graduate, at least by the end of the summer? And instead of doing that, like Casey literally was up in the office lying still. Like she was like, oh no, they're not telling the truth. That's not true. I didn't skip school and I took all my classes. You guys have something wrong. So Casey made it seem like to her parents that the school did something and they had something against her and they messed up the reason why she didn't have enough credits because she didn't do anything wrong. And of course, instead of her parents being like, stop lying, like we're right here in school, instead of doing that, they believed her, which is crazy to me. Like, you're literally in the face of the principal and the counselor, and they're telling you what's going on, and yet you're believing your daughter, who apparently was skipping and doesn't have enough credits. So, after this, they still believe her. I guess for some reason they believe she's going to graduate. I'm not sure why they believe this. I'm sure Casey came up with an elaborate story since she's such an amazing storyteller to convince them that she was graduating. So Sydney literally invited all their family and friends to her graduation. At the end of the graduation, when they all realized that Casey didn't walk through the graduation, they were like, what's going on? How come Casey didn't walk? Sydney literally told them, oh, she graduated. She just didn't get to walk. Well, why'd you have everybody show up if she wasn't walking? Like, that's just crazy to me. But no, your daughter didn't graduate high school. And I don't like, which is crazy that you sat here and you fed into her lies and that you really believed them, even though you had everybody telling you that no, she didn't graduate. Like, no, she didn't do what she was supposed to do to graduate. Instead of making Casey learn from this situation and suffer some type of consequences for what she did and lying and for skipping school and not graduating and then sitting there and lying to you guys, instead of doing something about that, you still believed her and act like she was telling the truth. And to me, there's no way that you believe that she was telling the truth. There's just not. But anyway, that's where it kind of started. And to me, I feel like that's probably happened her whole entire life, and her parents have always fed into it. And that's why Casey is as good as she is making these elaborate stories. Like, she just didn't become good at this out of nowhere. Like, this is something that she's probably done her whole life. And her mother, Sydney, was, I guess, just so gullible that she just believed it, or she just didn't want to be on Casey's bad side. So she just believed everything she said. Maybe, I don't know. Their whole family dynamic is very strange to me. And then on top of that, when Casey first found out she was pregnant, so she found out she was pregnant when she was 19 years old. Everybody was asking Casey, like, "Are you pregnant? Like, you're gaining weight. Are you sure you're not pregnant?" She lied about it. So almost the whole pregnancy, she lied and said she wasn't pregnant. Like, she would get mad at people for asking her if she was pregnant or telling her that she was pregnant. Even Sydney would. Sydney, like, when people would be like, so Sydney's mother told her, your daughter's pregnant. Like, she's pregnant. Casey's pregnant. And she was like, no, she's not. And she would get mad at her for even saying that because she had to believe everything that Casey told her. She was like, Casey said she's not pregnant, so she's not pregnant. Casey didn't confess or tell anyone she was pregnant till she was 7 months pregnant, which is insane to me. Like, you obviously knew you were pregnant this whole time. Everybody knew you were pregnant. For some reason, your mother pretended like she didn't know that you were pregnant. But now, even though you lied about being pregnant, she's so excited that you're pregnant, which I'm not saying she shouldn't be excited because she's going to be a grandmother, but she should have at least been mad at you for lying this whole time. At least I would think so. So from here, she gave birth to Caylee when she was 19 years old. So she might have been about 18 when she got pregnant. Caylee's father has never been identified. And Casey had told her then boyfriend, Jesse, that he was the father. But as time went on, he realized that the time didn't add up to when they started dating. So once Caylee was born, he got a DNA test, which proved that he wasn't the father. Even though she wasn't his, Jesse still wanted to play the father role to Caylee. And at one point, he told Casey that he wanted to adopt Caylee. But Casey ended up splitting up with Jesse, saying that she felt like Jesse loved Caylee more than her, which is kind of strange to me. That I think that's kind of like the first moment where I feel like Casey showed some type of jealousy towards Caylee. Now, Casey's brother Lee and her father were also tested because she had actually accused them both of SAing her when she was younger, but they were both cleared as well. Mind you, she didn't accuse them of this disgusting crime until she went to court. So they weren't like tested right after Caylee was born because no one ever heard this story till, she went to court. Casey had told her grandmother and some of her friends that her former boyfriend was the father, but he had passed away in a car accident. This was never proven though. She lied a few times about different guys that were possibly the father, and there's even some speculation that she just made up names to tell people. After that, Casey would never tell anyone who the father was until she did a documentary in 2022, and she said she was AR'd when she was 18 at a house party and that she was also drugged and had no memory of what happened and who did it to her. Now, I do think it's strange that it took her this long to tell this story. I'm not sure why she wouldn't have told people during her court hearing. I mean, it's strange to me that she would blame it on her father and brother before she would admit to being AR'd at a party. I feel like that would have been easier to talk about than her brother and father doing what they supposedly did to her. But I do honestly think that this is just another one of her stories to have people feel bad for her. I don't think we'll ever really find out who Kaylee's father is, honestly. But I don't know. I think she took all these years to come up with that story. I could be wrong. Like, I'm not going to say because sometimes it does take victims a long time to come out and speak about something like that. But I feel like with everything she went through, this would have been something that she spoke on during court or her lawyer would have had her speak on during court. So, and like I said, I feel like that would have been easier to speak on than her brother and father. But that's just my opinion. Like, what do you guys think? So let's go ahead and start talking about the storyline of how it was found out that Caylee was missing. Because if you remember, Casey didn't tell anyone that her 2-year-old daughter was missing, which is just wild to me. So, first, her parents started questioning her because Casey and Caylee lived there, and it was strange for them not to see Caylee every day. And now they haven't seen her for almost a month. But Casey would always blow it off saying Caylee was with a friend or the nanny. Casey's then boyfriend and his roommates also started questioning Casey because they were used to seeing her at least 3 times a week. And then Casey just stopped bringing her. When they would ask her, she would tell them Caylee was either with her grandparents or she was with the nanny. Now, the last time that Caylee was seen by anyone was on June 16th, 2008, by her grandfather George. He said that he saw Caylee and Casey get into the car and leave together. Sydney called the police 3 times on her daughter Casey on July 15th, 2008, a month after the last time Caylee was seen. The first time was for auto theft, even though she admitted to letting Casey use the car. While being transferred to the sheriff's office, Sydney can be heard threatening Casey to get a court order to get custody of her granddaughter, Caylee. After the first call, the calls became increasingly panicked, and Sydney eventually told a 911 dispatcher that her granddaughter had been missing for a month. After that call, Sydney said she overheard her daughter saying that Caylee had been gone for 31 days and she was taken by the nanny Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez, aka Zanny the Nanny. Sydney then called 911 again before deputies arrived at her home.
911, what's your emergency? I called a little bit ago, the deputy sheriff. I found out my granddaughter has been taken. She has been missing for a month. We're talking about a 3-year-old little girl. My daughter finally admitted that the baby's in the store. I need to find her. Your daughter admitted that the baby is where? But the babysitter took her a month ago. My daughter's been looking for her. I told you my daughter was missing for a month. I just found her today, but I can't find my granddaughter. And she just admitted to me that she's been trying to find her herself. There's something wrong. I found my daughter's car today, and it smells like there's been a dead body in the damn car.
Okay, what is the 3-year-old's name?
Caylee, Caylee, Anthony.
Caylee Anthony?
Yes.
How long has she been missing for?
I have not seen her since the 7th of June.
Is your daughter there?
Yes.
Can I speak with her?
She's downstairs. They want to talk to you. Answer the question. Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Can you tell me what's going on a little bit?
I'm sorry?
Can you tell me a little bit what's going on?
My daughter's been missing for the last 31 days.
And you know who has her?
I know who has her. I've tried to contact her. I actually received a phone call today, now from a number that is no longer in service. I did get to speak to my daughter for about a minute.
Who has her? Do you have a name?
Her name is Zenaida Fernandez.
After listening to this call, I don't feel like Sydney had anything to do with Caylee's disappearance. I feel like her reaction was very genuine and she sounded very concerned, especially with her calling the police 3 times. Now, listening to Casey, she literally sounded so unbothered and unconcerned that her 2-year-old daughter was missing. She honestly seemed annoyed that her mother was calling the police. Heck, she sounded like a spoiled teenager whose mother was bothering her and didn't want to talk about it because she didn't do anything wrong or that it wasn't a big deal. But it was a big deal. Like, your 2-year-old daughter is missing. Like, come on now. So once police arrived, Casey told them the Zanny the Nanny story. She also told them that she confided in some friends that she worked with at Universal Studios about Zanny taking Caylee. So that's when police asked Casey to show them where Zanny lived. So Casey took them to the apartment complex and pointed up at an apartment and said that is where she lived and where she would drop Caylee off. So once the police went up there to the apartment, they saw it was empty and had been for a while. So from there, they asked to speak with her coworkers and to get a phone that Casey said that she left at Universal Studios on her office desk. So Casey took them to Universal Studios and they all went to the front desk. Casey gave them her name and they were like, "You don't work here. Your name isn't in our system." But Casey insisted that she did and kept asking them to check again. She then gave them the name of her supervisor and his number and extension. And they were like, "No one works here by that name. And that number and extension doesn't work either." At this point, the detectives were looking at each other like, "What's going on here?" But Casey kept insisting, so a supervisor told her that she could take the detectives to her office. As she was walking through the hall, she was literally smiling and waving at everyone like she knew them. Police said everyone was looking at her in confusion, like they had no idea who she was. She then led the detectives to a dead end and she turned around and was like, "Yeah, I don't work here." Detectives were like, "Yeah, we know." And then they took her back to the station for questioning. At first, the detectives didn't think that Casey had hurt her daughter or that her daughter was actually missing. They thought maybe Casey had hidden Caylee from her grandmother, Sydney. And this is because they said when they arrived to the home, Sydney did seem like an overbearing grandparent and that she may have been trying to relive her motherhood through Caylee. It was also based off of how Casey was acting. I mean, she had no emotions and didn't seem to be bothered that her daughter was missing. So that led police to think that Caylee was alive and Casey knew where she was. But once they started to dig deeper, they realized Casey had lied about everything. And that worried them. They said it was then that they knew Casey had did something horrible to Caylee. They had found out the apartment that Casey said she was dropping Caylee off had been vacant for 6 months, and that no one named Zenaida ever lived there. The apartment complex also had surveillance, and that showed that Casey had never been to that apartment complex before. But did Casey admit to this? No, she kept her lie up and insisted that Zenaida had Caylee. On July 16th, 2008, the next day, Casey was arrested and charged with child neglect and giving false statements and obstruction. Now, Casey's first day in jail, she was able to make a call to her family. I want you guys to take a listen to this and let me know what you think down in the comments.
Casey?
Mom.
Hey, sweetie.
Well, I just saw your nice little cameo on TV.
Which one?
What do you mean, which one?
Which one? I did 4 different ones, and I don't know. I haven't seen them all. I've only seen 1 or 2 so far.
You don't know what my involvement is and stuff?
Casey?
Mom.
What?
No.
I don't know what your involvement is, sweetheart. You're not telling me where she's at.
Because I don't f***ing know where she's at. Are you kidding me?
Casey, don't waste your call to
No.
scream and holler at me.
Waste my call sitting in, the jail?
Whose fault is
bunks are?
Whose fault is you sitting in the jail? You're blaming me that you're sitting in the jail?
Not
Blame
my
yourself
fault.
for telling lies. You mean it's not your fault? What do you mean it's not your fault, sweetheart? If you'd have told them the truth and not lied about everything, they wouldn't...
Do me a favor, just tell me what Tony's number is. I don't want to talk to you right now. Forget it.
I don't have his number.
We'll get it from Lee because I know Lee's at the house. I saw Mallory's car was out front. It was just on the news. They were just live outside the house.
I know they were.
Well,
Well?
can you get Tony's number for me so I can call him?
Hey,
Hey, can you give me Tony's number?
I can do that. I don't know what real good it's going to do you at this point.
Well, I'd like to talk to him anyway.
Okay.
Because I called to talk to my mother, and it's f***ing waste. Oh, by the way, I don't want any of you coming up here when I have my first hearing for bond and everything else. Like, don't even waste your time coming up here.
You know, you're making it real tough for anybody to want to try to even assist you with giving you somebody's phone number. You're not even letting me finish.
Well, let's go ahead.
You're asking me for Tony's phone number so you can call him, and then you immediately want to start pressing towards me and saying, don't even worry about coming up here for all this stuff and trying to cut us out.
I'm not trying to cut anybody out.
I'm not going around and around with you. You know, that's pretty pointless. I'm not going to put everybody else through the same stuff that you've been putting the police and everybody else through for the last 24 hours and the stuff you've been putting Mom through for the last 4 or 5 weeks. I'm done with that. So you can tell me what's going on. Christina would love to talk to you because she thinks that you will tell her what's going on. Frankly, we're going to find out. Whatever's going on, it's going to be found out. So why not do it now?
There's nothing to find out. There's absolutely nothing to find out, and that's even what I told the detective.
Well, you know, everything
I have no clue where Caylee was. If I knew where Caylee was, do you think any of this would be happening? No.
Anyway, you only got a couple minutes for this, so I'm not going to let you completely waste it. Here's Christina. She thinks she can get through.
No, I want Tony's number. I'm not talking to anybody else.
Hello?
Hi, I'm glad everybody's at my house. I'll have to call you later. I'll have to call somebody to get your number. Do me a favor, get my brother back because I need Tony's number.
Okay, is there anything I can do for you?
I'm sitting in jail. There's nothing anybody can do right now.
Well, I'm just trying to be...
Oh, I know you are, honey. I absolutely know that you are, and I appreciate everything that you're trying to do, but I'd like to call Tony. He's not at my house, is he?
No,
okay.
No, it's just me and your parents and Lee.
Okay, well, can you do me a favor and get my brother back or get the number from him, please?
Does Tony have anything to do with Caylee?
No, nothing.
Okay, so why do you want to talk to Tony? You probably don't want to tell me, do you?
Huh?
You probably don't want to tell me, do you?
I didn't hear what you said.
I said, does Tony have anything to do with Caylee?
No, Tony had nothing to do with Caylee.
Oh, so why do you want to talk to him? You probably don't want to tell me.
He's my boyfriend, and I want to actually try to sit and talk to him because I didn't get a chance to talk to him earlier because I got arrested on whim today because they're blaming me for stuff that I never would do, that I didn't do.
Okay. Well, I'm on your side, you know that, right?
Honey, I know that. I just want to talk to Tony, get a little bit of...
Casey, you have to tell me if you know anything about Caylee.
Sweetheart,
if anything happens to Caylee, Casey, I'll die. You understand? I'll die. If anything happens to that baby.
Oh, my God. Calling you guys? Waste. Huge waste. Honey, I love you. You know I would not let anything happen to my daughter. If I knew where she was, this wouldn't be going on.
Well, how come everybody's saying you're lying?
Because nobody's listening to anything that I'm saying. The media completely misconstrued everything that I said. Detectives told them they got all of their information from me, yet at the same time, they're twisting stuff. They've already said they're going to pin this on me if they don't find Caylee.
So this was pretty sickening to me. Like, she had no concern or worry about her daughter. She didn't ask one question about Caylee. She didn't ask what they were doing to help find Caylee or anything. The first thing she was worried about was her mother doing interviews and making her look bad. Then after that, all she was concerned about was getting her boyfriend Tony's phone number, which is so crazy to me. She had no emotions except for being annoyed. Meanwhile, on July 17th, detectives were heading to Casey's car to investigate that awful smell that her mother Sydney said smelled like a dead body. Detectives approached the car and they said it smelled awful and that it smelled like there was a decomposed body inside. The cadaver dog also stopped at the trunk and confirmed that it had also smelled a decomposed body. The cadaver dog was also walked around the home and stopped in 2 places in the backyard, close to Caylee's playground. Caylee was not in the trunk, but the car did test positive for chloroform and human decomposition. And a strand of Caylee's hair was found and displayed root banding, which only occurs post-mortem. They also noticed that the trunk looked like it had been cleaned out. Now, Casey's parents did say that there was a bag of trash in the trunk and that it had old pizza and maggots in it. This bag was thrown out at the tow yard. The manager of the tow yard witnessed them open the trunk and throw the bag out. At this time, he didn't see a dead body in the trunk, but he did testify saying that he has smelled death before and Casey's car smelled like death. Investigators also questioned the neighbors to see if anyone saw or heard anything. They told investigators that they hear a lot of yelling, mostly Casey yelling and arguing with her mother pretty frequently. And one neighbor said that Casey actually had came over and asked to borrow a shovel, which sounds pretty sketchy to me. Like, why would she need a shovel? Casey doesn't seem like the yard working type to me. Was she going to use the shovel to bury Caylee? Is that why the cadaver dog stopped in the backyard twice? What do you guys think? On July 22nd, 2008, before all these results came back, a judge set a $500,000 bond and said that Casey would have to wear an ankle monitor. Tony, who was Casey's boyfriend at the time, and his uncle, who was a bail's bondman, bailed her out of jail, but they ended up revoking the bail, saying it wasn't safe for Casey to be out. Tony also said Casey wouldn't talk to him once he got her out because him and his uncle were hoping to help Casey find Caylee, but she probably didn't want to be bothered by any questions. At that time, thousands of people were helping to look for Caylee, and everyone thought she had done something to Caylee. So people were irate that she was out of jail, and they were gathering around outside her house, yelling and screaming. On September 5th, 2008, Casey was released again on bail for all pending charges after being fitted with an electronic tracking device. Her $500,000 bond was posted by her parents, who signed a promissory note for the bond. On October 14th, 2008, Casey was indicted by a grand jury on charges of first-degree murder, aggravated child abuse, aggravated manslaughter of a child, and 4 counts of providing false information to police. She was later arrested. Quick side note, at this time, they still haven't found Caylee. She also told them that she knew Caylee was close. And then the last thing was Sydney told Casey that she forgives her for anything she might have said. And Casey laughed and said, "I didn't say anything." I thought that was kind of weird as well because at that time, Casey was offered a limited immunity deal in exchange for helping finding Caylee or to any information that she might have to help lead them to Caylee. There were a few things that stuck out to me watching videos of her parents talking to her in jail. Now, the first thing is that Casey was laughing and smiling when her parents arrived. Her mother was crying and she was laughing, saying, "Why is she crying?" Another was her dad kept saying, "You know you can trust me." Now, he could have just been saying this to, make Casey maybe open up to him, or maybe he didn't want her to say anything. I'm not sure. So I'm not sure if that means anything or not, but it was kind of a coincidence. On August 11th, 12th, and the 13th of 2008, a meter reader, Roy Kronk, called the police about a suspicious object found in a forested area near the Anthony residence. During the first call, he was redirected to the tip line and never received a call back. The second call that he made, he said that he saw a skull, so 2 policemen came out and did a quick look around and didn't see anything. So they then got on him for making a false call. Then the third call he made, the police came back out and searched, and this time they found the remains of a child in a trash bag. Investigative teams recovered duct tape, which was hanging from hair attached to the skull, and some tissue left on the skull. Over the next 4 days, more bones were found in the wooded area near the spots where the remains initially had been discovered. On December 19th, 2008, a medical examiner confirmed that the remains found were Caylee's. The death was ruled as a homicide and the cause of death listed as undetermined. So now let's talk about Casey's trial. Casey's attorney was Jose Baez. Now, at this time, he wasn't a big shot lawyer. People speculated how she even afforded him. It was said that she was sleeping with him. It was also said that she sold pictures of Caylee to the media outlets, and that's how she paid for him. But it was also said that maybe he did it for a discounted rate because he knew this case was going to get worldwide coverage, and if he won, he would be one of the best defense attorneys out there. The trial began on May 24th, 2011, and lasted for about 6 weeks. Prosecutors stated that Casey used chloroform to incapacitate Caylee before suffocating her with duct tape, leaving the body in the trunk of her car before disposing of it. Prosecutors alleged that she did this because she was tired of being a mom and she wanted to go out and party. They showed that after Caylee's passing, Casey was out partying and getting tattoos. And what mother whose child accidentally passed away would be out partying right after? And why would you cover up an accident to make it look like a murder? The defense, led by Baez, said Caylee had likely accidentally drowned in the family pool on June 16, 2008, and that George and Casey covered up the drowning in order to spare her a potential child neglect charge. The defense further said that Casey's seemingly unaffected behavior after Caylee's death was because of her child abuse that she allegedly suffered at the hands of her father and brother. And that was also allegedly why her father helped her, because she said he was abusing Caylee as well, so he was also covering his crimes, which George denied these allegations. Now, for Sydney, I feel like she lied a lot in this trial to protect her daughter. When they asked her about her 911 call and saying Casey's car smelled like a dead body, she said that it was just a figure of speech and she just exaggerated on the phone in an effort to get police to respond quickly. She also said that she has smelled death before being a nurse, and Casey's car didn't smell like that. Meanwhile, George said it most definitely did. The prosecution also showed that someone used the Anthony family computer to search for chloroform, and during that time, both Sydney and George were at work. But Sydney said she did it by accident. She was looking for something else and it popped up. She also said she's a salary employee, so she comes and goes as she needs from work. Everything that the prosecution brought to the table, the defense literally had an explanation for everything. And they also had specialists to pretty much combat everything that the prosecution specialist would say. They went back and forth on whether the duct tape was put on Caylee before she passed or after. But it didn't help that Sydney testified that their family buried their pets in blankets and plastic bags using duct tape to seal the openings. I feel like she did that to make it seem like that was why the duct tape was there and not the fact that someone could have put it over Caylee's nose and mouth. On June 30th, the defense called Crystal Holloway, a volunteer in the search for Caylee, who stated she had an affair with George. According to Crystal, George had said that Caylee's death was an accident that snowballed out of control. On July 5th, 2011, the jury found Casey not guilty of counts 1 through 3 regarding first-degree murder, aggravated manslaughter of a child, and aggravated CA. I'm just going to use that because I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that on YouTube. While finding her guilty on counts 4 through 7 for providing false information to the law enforcement, the guilty counts pertain to Casey's false statements that 1. She worked at Universal Studios. 2. She employed Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez as a nanny. 3. Had told 2 Universal Studio coworkers that Caylee had disappeared. And 4. Had spoken by phone to Caylee after Caylee went missing. On July 7th, 2011, Casey was sentenced to 1 year in the county jail and $1,000 in fines for each of the 4 counts of providing false information to a law enforcement officer. Because Casey had been incarcerated since October 2008, she received more than 1,000 days in time served credit, and she was released 10 days after sentencing. Casey must pay $2,700 to the state of Florida for pretty much wasting everyone's time and resources. Some of the jurors came out and spoke on how they felt. Some regretted their decision. The jurors agreed if they were going fully on feelings and emotions that they would have found Casey guilty. But they wanted to go on evidence that was presented to them, and there just wasn't enough evidence. They also said they all were sick to their stomachs over the verdict. Casey left Florida at an undisclosed location not long after the verdict. However, on August 12th, Casey was ordered to return to serve a year's supervised probation for an unrelated check fraud conviction, where during the time Caylee was missing and Casey wasn't working, she stole her friend Amy's checkbook and drained her bank account. Now, a lot of people came out and sued Casey, and Casey had to file for bankruptcy because after everything, she owed a little over $1 million. Now, one positive thing that came out of sweet baby Caylee's death was Caylee's Law. Caylee's Law imposes stricter requirements on parents to notify law enforcement of the death or disappearance of a child. The consequences differ in each state. Are you wondering what Casey's up to now? Well, she still loves to party. People still post pictures of her at bars and at clubs. In December 2020, Casey attempted to create a private investigation business, but she wasn't able to do so because she is a convicted felon. She also tried to become a photographer, but she was getting too much hate. In November 2022, Casey appeared in the docuseries Caylee Anthony, Where the Truth Lies, which she probably got paid for, but she claims she didn't. Casey now works as a legal assistant and does accounting work. So now that we went over everything, I'm going to let you guys know my opinion. I think Casey is a manipulative narcissist and a compulsive liar. I think one, she was jealous of her daughter because everyone loved her and she felt like they loved Caylee more than her. I also think she did it so she could go out and party every night because her boyfriend at the time was a club promoter. And she couldn't give her mother, Sydney, the satisfaction of giving her Caylee because then she would probably rub it in her face or she would probably always have something to say about it, and she just couldn't have that. I do feel like she lied about her father and her brother as well because I don't think she would have continued to live in the household once she brought her daughter into the world. I feel like she used chloroform to make Caylee pass out, and maybe she didn't mean to kill her, but she did. And then she hid her body. There's also the fact that detectives came out a few years ago and said they overlooked Casey's Firefox browser, which was only used by Casey because it required her password. Now, once they looked through everything, they found that Casey searched for the term foolproof suffocation multiple times, and she looked up poisoning and self-harm. Now, I don't think that Caylee drowns, and I don't think that her father covered that up for her. I mean, he was a retired police officer. He would have known it would have been better to just call the police, and Casey would more than likely not get into any trouble because it would have been an accident. Now, I'm not sure if George helped Casey hide Caylee's body or not. He might have caught Casey trying to hide the body and then maybe panicked, and Casey probably fed him a sob story, so he then tried to help her hide Caylee. But I do have mixed feelings about that. What do you guys think about this case? I really want to know your guys' opinions on this case, so let me know down in the comments. And if you guys are interested, we can set up a live for next week so we can all just talk more about this case all together. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hit that notification bell for more content. And I'll see you guys next time.